And I want to say good morning again. So it's Jennifer Britton. It is October the 16th, 2017, and this is one of our many launch calls for Effective Virtual Conversations. Thanks for taking a few minutes to join us today. And I do want to welcome a couple of people live. They've already submitted their questions. We had a couple of people drop in at 11 o'clock, and I do want to apologize for those that joined earlier. Our calls up to this date have been at 11 a.m. What I would recommend in the future, because the virtual world is ongoing change as everywhere else. Check the Effective Group Coaching Facebook page for most up-to-date times. I usually try to put a little announcement the start of the morning at Effective Group Coaching. Our next call is, in fact, in 2 weeks, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that later. So today is all about marketing, marketing your virtual programs, public, corporate, filling the groups, putting voices on the line, or in other words, getting people into the room with you. But today, really want to laser into virtual programs, which is a little bit different. There are some similarities, but there are also some differences, namely, I think in some respects, marketing virtual programs is a little bit different or easier, I wanted to say, not different, easier if you have a following that is virtual itself. So I want to get everyone thinking today about what's going to work for you, because really marketing, we could do, 5 weeks on marketing and people would still be having some traction issues. So if you do not have a pen and a piece of paper with you already, this is one of those calls where you're going to want to take some notes as you go. I have a short activity at the start of this call to get you thinking about what's really going to work best for you in this moment. Not what was going to work for you a month ago or 2 weeks ago, but what's going to work for you in this moment. So we're going to do a little bit of work on that. I'm also going to be sharing with you some of those rules of thumb, marketing for public programs. And then towards the end of our call, I'll be getting into a couple of thoughts on corporate positioning. Because really, virtual programming, there's a couple of different channels here. Part of this is about building your platform. Part of it is also about getting some traction going with all of your programs. And what I know from running public virtual programs since 2004, so 13 years now, almost 14 years now, is it generally takes some time to get some traction on any virtual programs. As some of you may know, throughout the year, whether it's monthly or quarterly, I have new group offerings online. And for new programs that I'm introducing, it usually is somewhere between like a 2 to 3 month startup. Often, most of my programs will be running regularly. So if someone can't catch it on this October start date, they will know that they can catch it again in perhaps January. That takes a little bit of the immediate pressure off in terms of marketing. And I think is representative of we've got to have a whole set of alignment for people to be able to say yes to your virtual offerings. The good news is you are marketing to a global audience in most respects. So of course, there are nuances in terms of that, everything from taxation to a lot of other issues like how are you taking registrations. I'm not going to have time to get into those calls today in 30 minutes, so I do want to manage expectations. Today, 30 minutes is going to be high level, what's going to work best for you, what are some ideas. So a reminder though of what we've covered already, because if marketing is your interest, probably some of these other topics that I've done in the last 2.5 months will be of interest. I have to say Breakouts at Sizzle is getting a lot of traction at YouTube. More than a dozen people have looked at it in the last few days. That was our latest call. I've also got calls that you can find moving the needle on engagement, different virtual platforms, and activities to open and close sessions as well. So take a few minutes, I hope. And I think to start off the conversation today about marketing, it's really important to get you thinking about what are the results you want. Because we can be doing a lot of things. The space around marketing is very noisy. I often reflect though, as much as the vehicles around marketing have changed, for many of our industries, the noise factor is still the same as it always was. And I say this as someone who taught marketing studies for several years part-time. When I was starting up my business back in 2004, I was a part-time business faculty member. And so I taught marketing studies, not to coaches, not to trainers, but to real-time entrepreneurs. And so the nuts and bolts around what do we know about marketing? And it really still is about product and placement and positioning and the people that you're working through. I will be the first to name that, my marketing strategy is very educational and focused. That aligns with who I am and the value I want to create in the world. And in doing so, I know that what I choose to put results around, I will follow through with results, because it's really easy to say, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to jump on Facebook Live and do 30 days of video. Just for me, in this moment in time, I know that would just not be appealing. But I could sit down and write blog posts for 30 days. And that is something I've done for the last 3.5 years now over at the Teams 365 blog. So I want you to take a moment just on that piece of paper I asked you to grab a few minutes ago. Like, if you think about where you are right now in this moment, end of October 2017, what are the results that you want when it comes to marketing? Take 20 seconds, get specific, give it some numbers, give it some framework. What are the results you're looking for specific to marketing? And that will help us as we go through our call today. So there are tons of things we can be doing, and rather than just getting like the fire hose, really important that we first start off with some basic principles. And so the place that I always like to start about, you've probably heard me say it before, but I'll say it again, marketing and promotion is all about the client or the people that you're working for. Really important that we zoom into what do people want, what do they value, and what do they prefer. And I just want to really frame our discussion this afternoon or this morning to look at this, to get you thinking about the wants of your client. Like, what's keeping them up at night? What are those things that are going to be enough of a pain point or enough of an aspiration for them to say, I want to participate. I'm going to invest not only my time, but possibly my money. I would like to invite you right now to note for yourself, what do people want? And what are the top 2 or 3 topics they would be willing or want to be focusing on? Maybe they're new leaders. Maybe their pain point is, I need to get better at giving presentations. Or maybe it's a question of, I need to become more aware of my strengths and the blind spots that those strengths create. So take 15 seconds right now to note for yourself, think of a client. We have someone on the call today. They've got an actual event later this week. It's in person, but these principles hold true for the marketing of in-person events. What are the things that they really, really want, which would be the tipping point to say, yes, I'm actually going to sign up for this? Top 2 or 3 issues. The other thing we want to think about too is not only what they want, but what do people value? And this is where there is so much noise. We hear a lot about, oh, you need to be on social media. For many people, yes, we do need to be on social media, but you then need to ask, well, what's the channel? Are my crowd or the people that I'm marketing to actually on Facebook, or are they more on LinkedIn? You do want to think about what people are valuing in terms of like the length or the program elements. I know in a lot of my work, I started out thinking that people would want a 1-month program. Very quickly, from a coaching perspective, they wanted more than 1 month. They wanted 3-month programs. On the flip side, I know that some people really value a 2-month or 3-month process, but don't have the time and value sort of participating real time in a 1-day process. And that led for me to translate some of my in-person retreats to virtual retreats. So we want to be thinking about, like, what are you hearing when you think about the people that you're reaching out to with products and services? What do they value? What are the channels that they're found on? How much are they willing to spend on this work? And in terms of pricing, it's an area that I will always say you need to do some research on your own end in terms of looking at what is appropriate and what is meaningful in their context. There is really a range in terms of what's being offered in the virtual space today, that we can't say that, to charge X amount for a webinar or X amount for a group coaching process. In addition to the wants and the values, which I hope you're noting down for yourself, there are going to be a number of preferences in terms of approaches, channels, and promotions. And in fact, for the rest of this call, I'm going to be zooming more into like getting you thinking about marketing through that lens of promotion. Where do you want to be getting the word out about what you have to offer? So, last chance, as you think about your wants, values, and preferences, what are the things you notice? Just take 3 or 4 seconds as I'm switching slides to think about what do you notice from that list of their wants, preferences, and needs. One of the things we know is that we're going to be more effective, and Gallup has done amazing work for a long, long time in terms of tracking people who are able to use their strengths, tracking people who are able to use their strengths not only in the workforce and leadership, but they also have track strengths around sales. So we want to think about, what are we good at? Are you a great speaker? Or maybe you're a great writer. I'd invite you, as you're thinking about this question, what are your strengths? And right now, in this moment, to actually write out the top 3 strengths. If you were to give yourself an A or a B plus in 3 areas of marketing or relationship building, what would those be? Just jot those down, because I say relationship building because for a lot of service-based professionals, that being coaches, trainers, facilitators, holistic healthcare providers, so many of us really are coming from a place of service, and we're growing our businesses one person at a time. When I say one person at a time, it doesn't mean that it's piecemeal, and it can be very additive, but we may not be going out to really blitz things to grow a multi-million-dollar business. I do want to also really be realistic on, what are these points going to be leveraging. We also need to know that we have a plan. And so one of the biggest challenges, I think, for people today is that they've got all these ideas in their head, but not on paper. So I've got a minute recording here of some music. I'd invite you, just off the top of your head, to write down all of the ideas that you have rattling around your brain right now around marketing. Maybe you are stuck on, what the heck should I do to get those people in my room for Friday? Write it down. For others, for me, it's like, what am I going to do for upcoming blog posts in the month of November? For someone else on a call, it may be another topic area, but I'm going to give you 2 minutes of silence with a little bit of background noise to think about and write down, capture the ideas that are coming up for you right now as it relates to marketing. Take 2 minutes while we're doing this to note your own interesting areas. And what is interesting is that there is no music. So I will set a timer. Music is not. We are going to work in silence and get you to just jot down your mind map ideas for 2 minutes right now. All right, and that's just a little less than 2 minutes. So I'd like you to take a look at whatever showed up on your piece of paper and to star the one or two things that you think you could actually get some traction around this week. I know for at least one caller on the phone today or on the Zoom today, there's some like pretty urgent things. And I know even in 2 minutes, something got shifted for me as I looked at some ideas that I was thinking about. I realized, what's key when I think about what's practical and tactical, what my clients want and what they prefer. They do want something that's short and sweet. It's about brevity. And in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messaging, we want to make sure that it's brief and that it's consistent and that it's usually probably done frequently. So whether we do that by automation or whether we do that by types of messaging, having some ongoing regular action is key. For those that have events coming up, I think one thing to keep in mind is always keep your foot on the gas. And I've actually got something to this effect. So my point number 4 this morning was to really just get you thinking about what is regular, consistent action. Is it weekly? Is it daily? Is it monthly? 4 years ago now, almost, I embarked on this daily activity around blogging. And I did that. I'd been a blogger for more than almost a decade at that point in my group coaching blog, but I knew that I wanted to be doing more writing in the space of virtual and also leadership. And the notion in late 2013 was born for me to do a new blog around team development issues. Taking that regular, consistent action has had a tremendous domino effect on a couple of layers of my business, including getting the word out. If we don't have channels to get the word out for virtual and or in-person events, it can be very frustrating. In a virtual domain, probably most of us do find ourselves in some sort of social media setting, whether it's making announcements through our blog, whether it's making announcements through perhaps Facebook page, Twitter feed, LinkedIn. These are all different vehicles to get the word out. Newsletters even. And I've got a couple of different examples later on. Because what is interesting in the virtual space is you've got to keep the pedal to the metal until the end. And I do see this all the time. This morning at 9 a.m., I launched a new group. What do you think I woke up to? At 6:41, someone emailed saying, "Hey, can I join in? Is it too late?" Good thing I was at my desk at 6 a.m. this morning. Easily brought them on the line. At the end of the call at 10:15, they said, "Oh, it's so great that I was able to jump in." And just as I was transitioning into this call, I checked my email and there had been someone who reached out Sunday who said, "Is there still space?" Luckily there was. They weren't able to be with us today, but they're ready to jump in next week. So that is, not only income in, but it is allowing you to continue to keep the pedal to the metal until the end. And so some of these things we can be doing by automation. I'm going to go into number specifics because in terms of marketing and positioning, we can get the word out in a number of ways. And I think we always want to be very aware of what's the long tail and what's the short tail. Marketing for a program that's later this week is going to have different strategies than marketing for programs over the longer term. And as I said, I keep noticing, and this has been over 14 years now, that it takes time for programs to get established. I would hearken or liken to say that's virtually and also in person. But given that a lot of my public programs have inevitably wound up virtual for a number of reasons, it takes a couple of cycles for it to really be, I think, even on someone's radar screen. So I wanted to just track this. Some of you may have heard me share this a little bit, but one of the first group programs I had out of my gate as a business was one that became well known as Your Balanced Life. And it originally started in my first, second, third month of business. It was really the summer of 2004, where I wanted to offer it up as a teleseminar program. I knew that my network was global. So even in those days, to try and bring people together in, here in Canada was going to be very challenging. So I put it out and I started marketing it through the channels that I had. Nonprofit organizations, global agencies, and I got enough people together to run a 4-week teleseminar. there might have only been 3 or 4 people, but for me, 3 or 4 people meant that we could get things started. And that's something I think for each one of us as a business wants to look at. What's our investment? A lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to run a program if it's less than 10 people. Well, you know what? I've learned there's really always value. As long as there's a cost benefit, there's always value in having smaller groups, especially if you want to be piloting things and getting the word out. So the 4-week teleseminar quickly grew in, based on the feedback in that first group and a second group, grew into a 3-month group coaching program. And that happened within about a 2 to 3 month span. By the spring of 2015, I was getting asked for retreat work. And I thought, this is great. And in May of that year, my son was born. I very quickly realized that I could no longer be offering in-person retreats for a full day on Saturday with this little infant child at home. So in the spring and summer of 2005, I started piloting what I now call, and what are well known in the world as virtual retreats, where we actually took very similar curricula and moved it from teleseminar to group coaching to in-person retreat to virtual retreat. And that now is a program that I license. The beauty of having a program that arcs through this is you're building a platform consistently. So it started out, one of my main vehicles for this program was the Your Balanced Life blog. It started in 2004. You can still find it online. Go to Your Balanced Life blog in Google or your search engine, and you will probably still come up with it. You'll notice that I haven't touched it in years, but it's still a digital footprint that is out there. So we're doing things, I think, in marketing with group programs, especially virtually, for the long and the short. And I've said a couple of times, blogs are key. I've really had a lot of fun putting everything I learned from 3 former blogs into practice in my latest and most up-to-date I would say the Teams 365 blog is the one that I deal with all the time. There is, of course, a blog associated with Effective Virtual Conversations, but it's only a weekly blog. And what was really fun recently was that we were awarded a top 100 HR blog online from the work that has come out at the Teams 365 blog. I don't sit down and write it every day, but I spend time every week writing and then getting it scheduled for posting. And that's an important vehicle which I maintain and can let people know about the new book, what's upcoming, and I can do that in a way where I'm educating, but also allow for more information coming back. Now, the whole online space allows for an online marketing strategy. So this could be establish a Facebook page, or this could be establish an account for your business and create an event. And that's something we can do through Facebook, through Twitter if you choose, through Instagram, Pinterest. What's not on here but should be on here is LinkedIn. And so really you want to be thinking about what are the different channels that you can let the world know about what you have upcoming. So if we do have that program 2 weeks from now, we should be sending out a blitz to all the media channels, maybe with a photo of the course name and even a start date. I know as I've established programs, I've had to be as directive as like getting a banner ad done, getting like actual graphics done. Once programs become more established, people become your followers, and they may know that, oh, hey, Jennifer's got another group coaching essentials coming up next month. So they're following, and I don't necessarily have to do anything more than create an event in Facebook, put it out on Twitter. People will see Pinterest posts in the past and they may stumble on it. So that's another strategy. Another one that I love, and this is if you're doing in-person, locally, trade shows may be a great event. There's a whole cost and time expense on trade shows, but it was a way for me as an early coach, a junior coach years ago, that created a lot of my initial business that fed groups and individual coaching work. So you'll want to think about, are you in a center where there are a lot of trade shows? Or are you part of industries where your clients do go to trade shows, whether they're virtual or in person, because there are now virtual trade shows as well. So think about where your clients congregate. Who could you collaborate with to bring a trade show experience together? I still do trade shows and I still have booths at industry events, but it is expensive. So you'll want to think about, do you collaborate with others? And in fact, some of the early trade shows I did were here in Toronto, which is at Trade Show Heaven, but they were at mega events, like 3,000 to 5,000 people coming through the trade show floor at a time. And actually, in that first year of my business, I collaborated with 6 to 8 other coaches. We would get a booth and offer real-time coaching through the wheel of life day after day after day. And it was a very powerful way to get messaging and languaging around what how I was talking about my programs. It was something I could not have gotten from organizing 1,000 different conversations. So crowdsourcing, is there a way to crowdsource it? And I think, visibility is key, visibility online as well as visibility in your community. And so if you are offering in-person programming, how are you visible? How are you being seen at speaking events? How are you being seen in publications through articles that you write, etc.? So trade shows is something to think about. And I've just mentioned this next one of writing articles. Maybe going back, part of your homework after today is to go back and take a look at your list of marketing brainstorming. What would you write about? If you were to sit down and perhaps put your foot around doing 1 or 2 articles a month, what would your clients want to know more about? Where could you publish? Where could your clients go? Publications and publishing has changed dramatically in the last decade and a half. I say this as a published author, as a blogger. And there are so many different channels now where we can get involved, big and small, where we can be writing articles. So even if you don't have a blog, but you have some time and you have some ideas, get some articles under your belt. I still get emails and like business leads coming in from articles I posted back in 2007 at ezinearticles.com. I think that's still their website, ezinearticles.com. Even if you don't have a website, you can post articles up there. And you know what? Any of us who are writing, doing interviews, doing podcasts are constantly looking for interesting stories. So you might find that your articles get picked up by others who then syndicate it out to their network. Webinars, again, another great way, whether it's well attended or not, it doesn't matter in today's world, right? So many of our channels are video, similar to what we're doing today, and they're information based. So could you host a short webinar to show or to speak further about what you have to offer? Some of that can become snippets that you can post to your website. Some people love reading things, other people love hearing things. So webinars and videos, a whole other stream. I think we'll do a program, one of these calls on that, but it is another channel, as is word of mouth and referral. And so for those that might have programs coming up very soon, I think this is where you do crack open the phone and reach out to people in your network just to let them know what's going on. Is there, are there some people, influencers within your network that can get the word out quickly to people in your arena? There's sort of like some miracles that always happen, right? It's like whether it is virtual or in person, I think if we have a strong stake in the ground about our work, the people will show up. It's just like, I got 2 last minute registrations yesterday and today. And I'm always like noticing how clear am I in knowing that the right people will show up, even if I never know who these people are. And that's regular for me. In my virtual work, I will not meet most people until they come into my orbit and register. I will see their name for the first time. I reach out, I do a pre-call, and that's when I find out, how did you hear about this program? Oh, I've heard about it from others. Oh, I've heard about it through an article or a webinar that you did. So we need to be visible in many, many different channels. And I think whether it is an article or a short soundbite, maybe you are starting to host a monthly call. I know that this actual regular activity is really quite critical in terms of making sure that we keep things going. So do check and think about how you could do an audio, how you could also create an FAQ, a frequently asked question, so that there's more information so people can say yes. And in Effective Virtual Conversations, you'll actually find an actual checklist around frequently asked questions. So FAQs, things that you'll want to make sure you're doing, and that's pages 58 and 59, where I go into specific things that I include in every FAQ for programs. That includes things like creating a welcome email. So what do people need to know in order to join the program? How about the benefits? What will I learn? What do I need to participate? What's the structure? When do I connect? What do I need to do before the first call? These are all very practical, tactical things So if you have a copy of the book, page 58, 59. As you will know, I'm very much a writer in terms of practicality. If you're looking for conceptual, yes, there's conceptual, but there's a lot of really practical things to help you design your stuff right away. So another one that I mentioned, and we'll do a follow-up call on this, is video series. What are the topics you could be doing a series of videos around? So with all this in mind, there's so much you could be doing. I'd like you to think of an upcoming session. As a result of your participation today, what ideas do you have about filling your programming? Also think about what would be the fastest way to get people into your program. And I'd like you to think about what do you want to do and what do you need to do. Those are all different questions. As always, we're just taking a very high-level overview. This is where it's really important that we schedule ourselves some time to take concerted action. Now, if you're interested in corporate work, it's a bit of a different kettle of fish, I would say, and we do want to make sure that we have a compelling business case, that we do spend some time working on the proposal, that we confirm the platforms that are available, and this is always something that's going to vary dramatically. So as trainers, as facilitators, as coaches that work virtually, we need to really confirm what they are wanting us to do. Is it their platform? Is it ours? Is that going to take a lot of time? Do we need to build in an extensive test run? And you'll also want to make sure that you have references up your sleeve. So corporate proposals are very different, very tailored. I write a little less on this because in today's world, we're usually brought in and we're not having to design from afresh. So the book will, of course, be of use to people who are running corporate virtual programs, but actually this topic of marketing, and I should have started off here by saying, the topic of marketing is not one that I fully zoom into, unlike my other books. I spend more time in this book looking at how do you do the actual implementation, how do you set up your people for success, less around marketing. So your question is, what are the next 3 bullet points? What are the 3 things you want to do as a result of today's call? I'll invite you to just bullet those out for yourself, 1, 2, and 3. And as you're doing that, just a reminder of a couple of things that are ongoing. Tuesdays and Wednesdays of October, November, and into December 2017, I'm doing a series called 20 Activities for Virtual and Remote Teams. And I think those of you who are working as team developers, as team leaders, you'll find these activities very useful. I do hope you'll check it out at the Teams 365 blog over at potentialsrealized.com. A number of programs are coming up, including, of course, Group Coaching Essentials, which started today, but at the Learning Lab and Design Studio, which meets Friday mornings from 8 to 8:45, we're continuing on. Today's, or this month's topic of October, is actually on micro-learning. And a lot of these virtual channels are about these 3 to 10, 15-minute blocks of learning. I will also be launching the Virtual Facilitation Skills Intensive, a 15-hour virtual train-the-trainer. That will start on Friday, November 3rd. And later the next week, early the next week actually, Monday, November 6th, the 5-week Virtual Facilitation Essentials. If you're looking to just get started, I'd suggest the Essentials for Virtual Facilitation. If you're looking for an immersive deep dive, I would suggest Virtual Facilitation Intensive. More at effectivevirtualconversations.com or, of course, groupcoachingessentials.com. We do also, or I do, have an on-demand program. This topic of marketing has been asked widely about over the years, and I have a 5-hour on-demand program, marketing tips for your team and group programs. By the time you do all the activities, it takes about 5 hours. It's about 2, well, almost 3 and a little bit hours of ongoing video, but just watching the videos is not enough. You really need to build in time for your marketing. What I will be doing in the coming months as we go to the end of the year, I will be hosting a number of marketing and company business building events, virtual retreats, where literally for an afternoon, you're immersed in getting things on paper, going through activities real time to help you think about what you want to build. So next call's coming up. Next call will also be at 11:30. Okay, so these former calls for the next little while are going to start at 11:30. Monday, November 6th, we've got a pre-programmed checklist for virtual events. That's more of a checklist call. And then on November the 13th, I've got tricky issues in the virtual realm. I hope you've enjoyed today's call. And be sure to stay tuned for the transcripts. For those people who sign up for our newsletter, you'll have access to a number of transcripts of these calls. So I hope that you will follow on our monthly newsletter, which is due to come out soon, as well as these community calls at effectivevirtualconversations.com. With that, have a great week. I look forward to seeing you back here on Monday, November the 6th. Thanks for joining us. And as you go to wrap up, I'd love your feedback on what are your action steps? What are you going to make sure you do as a result of today's call? Have a great day and a great week.